A little while back I asked if people would be interested in sort of a 101 on shellac, and I've finally gotten around to doing that. So today we're going to have a quick look at what shellac is and different types of shellac on the market. Well, first off, what is shellac? Shellac is this flaky stuff we see here. And it is the, well, bug poo basically of the lac beetle, which is caught on trees and then processed into flakes or buttons. Most common form, at least in Australia, is this flake type. It can come in lots of varieties of colours. This, for example, is amber, which is here. This is waxed amber, whereas this is blonde shellac, which, as the name might imply, is a lot lighter, and this is also de-waxed. When mixed up, you get a jar like that. This is the amber shellac again, sorry. It's a very deep colour, and you would have seen this on shop projects in the past. It also comes in the pre-mixed form, such as this U-Butte hard shellac, which is a blonde de-waxed shellac. So essentially, you combine either of these with methylated spirits, which in America would be called denatured alcohol, and you get, well, the liquid form. The liquid form can then go on like most other finishes. However, it does have some special properties. The de-waxed shellacs, for example, can be used as a barrier layer for lots of different uses. For example, if you've got a particularly oily wood, you might notice that polyurethane takes a very long time to dry on it. So a thin coat of shellac seals it, and then the polyurethane dries on top. Shellac will stick to anything and everything. Alright, so what's the difference between these two, other than it being made from amber flakes and blonde flakes? Well, this is what would be called a 2-pound cut, whereas this is probably closer to a 3 or a 4-pound cut. So what's a pound cut? A pound cut is 1 gallon of ethanol, in this case methylated spirits or denatured alcohol, to 1 pound or 2 pound or 3 pound of shellac. Now that sort of quantity is quite large, so you wouldn't normally mix that much up. 2-pound cut, such as this, is usually a good sort of mix. You can get a decent layer on, or it can be thinned down, and you can go from there. In Australia, we don't use imperial measurements, so we would say 1 litre of alcohol to 250 grams of shellac. Again, that's quite a lot, so you'd scale that back, keeping that ratio of about 4 millilitres to 1 gram. Now I happen to need some blonde shellac, so I'm going to mix that up now. I don't need a lot of it, so I'm going to mix up 25 grams of shellac to 100 millilitres of alcohol. Now I need to measure out my 100 ml of alcohol. It's important to use as high quality alcohol as possible. This is industrial methylated spirits, so it's 100% methylated spirits. In Australia, by law, methylated spirits, if it doesn't list the percentage, can legally have up to, I think it's 30% water. That water will interact with the shellac, particularly if it's waxed shellac. Alright, so I'll just pour that in. And we're done, right? Good to go. Well, no, we actually have to wait for the shellac to dissolve. The alcohol works relatively fast, and through agitation we can speed that up. But you can see all the sediment on the bottom. Now we're going to come back in an hour or two, and that should be all melted down. Alright, so the blonde shellac has dissolved. I did move it to a different container so it was a little bit easier to see. It took 36 hours to dissolve. This is a bit slower dissolving than the amber shellac that I've used in the past. And as you can see, it's a nice sort of honey colour compared to the very thick, opaque amber shellac. So shellac can be applied in a number of ways. One is to pat it on with a cotton rag. The other is to brush it on. Typically for shop furniture, I'm using the amber shellac and I brush that on just to get more product on in a shorter time. Because I'm not caring about looks, I'm more caring about sealing the wood so it's easier to clean up and maybe give it some water protection. For the blonde de-waxed shellac, I'll apply that with a rag rather than a dirty brush. And you can see while it brings out some colour, that's really no more than wetting the wood. The colour that you get when you wet the wood with water. For example, I've got this shop towel just coated in water, and the colour's actually fairly similar. It's not bang on the same. Shellac will impart some colour, but it's quite a pleasant colour compared to the amber. That being said, the amber on darker woods can often be preferred to bring something else to the table. Now, these two coats are comparable in that they're both about 2 pound cuts. This one's going to take a bit longer to dry because I've applied more in one hit with the brush. So I'm going to leave this for a while. I'm going to apply a few more coats and we'll come back to it to see what the result is. Well, time got away from me and I wasn't able to get more coats on in the same day. However, I did end up putting 3 coats on, and you can see that there's a nice level of gloss going on now. We're not after that for appearance, but for this particular thing and for workshop jigs that I coat in shellac, I want a nice layer of gloss so that it's easier for the water and dust to just wipe off. And you know, this actually isn't looking terrible for a shop jig. This is very orange, unfortunately, but the rest of this I actually quite like with just the blonde shellac on. However, shellac isn't just for shop furniture or tools or things like that. This is a headboard from a bed build, which you'll see shortly, I hope. The whole thing has been shellac. There has been a coat of Danish oil on the light timber first and stain on the darker timber, then shellac. And it gives a really nice finish where you want to touch it. It's semi-gloss at the moment. If I add more coats, it'll get glossier and glossier. But unlike polyurethane, it has a really warm touch. And it just makes you want to touch it. And that's getting more into French polishing, which I'll go into in a future episode. So shellac, it goes on quick, it's waterproof, it provides a good layer of protection, so why wouldn't you use it all the time? Well, it's important with every finish to know its limitations and where it's going to work best for you and for the task at hand. I wouldn't necessarily use shellac on a dining table. It's not incredibly heat resistant. It's great for water, but for alcohol, so say someone spills some wine, it could actually dissolve the shellac. Now this is both a good and bad thing with shellac. It's really easy to repair. So if it's on a lesser used item that might get scratched or dinged up, it's very easy to repair it because you add some more shellac and it'll dissolve it and melt it together. So for a table, I tend to go with polyurethane as it's much harder wearing because it's a bit more flexible. So as I said, this is a 101 on shellac. If you've got specific questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll continue down the path of finishes and shellacs and things like that in the future. Sometime shortly, hopefully, I'll look at French polishing. Thanks for watching.